I'll never forget the day my granddaughter's mother passed away. My granddaughter was only 6 years old, and I had to step in to raise her as my own. It wasn't easy, but I did my best to provide for her, to give her a happy and stable home. Fast forward 8 years, my granddaughter is now a bright and beautiful 14-year-old girl. She's always been a joy to raise, but I've always wondered what would happen if her father came back into the picture. That's exactly what happened one ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I was cooking dinner in the kitchen when I heard the doorbell ring. I wiped my hands on my apron and made my way to the front door, expecting it to be a neighbor or perhaps a delivery. But to my surprise, it was my granddaughter's father standing in the doorway, looking every bit as guilty as I remembered him. He was a bit older, a bit grayer, but the same mischievous glint in his eye remained. My granddaughter's eyes were fixed on her father as he stood in our doorway, his eyes fixed on me with a mixture of guilt and greed. I could tell he was here for one reason, and one reason only: money. "What do you want?" I asked him, trying to keep my cool. "I want to see my daughter," he replied, his voice smooth as silk. "You've had 8 years to see your daughter," I reminded him. "Why now?" He shrugged, a sly smile spreading across his face. "I've been busy. But now I'm here, and I want to make things right." I raised an eyebrow. "Make things right? You think you can just waltz back into our lives after 8 years and make things right?" He nodded, his smile growing wider. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right. And I'm willing to pay for it." My heart sank as I realized what he was getting at. "How much?" I asked, already knowing the answer. $80,000, he replied, his eyes glinting with greed. I felt a surge of anger and resentment. "You're going to regret ignoring your daughter for so long," I told him. $80,000 is nothing compared to what you've missed." My granddaughter's eyes were fixed on her father, a mixture of emotions playing across her face. I could tell she was torn between her desire to reconnect with her father and her anger at his abandonment. But I knew one thing for sure: I would do whatever it took to protect my granddaughter from her father's manipulation. Little did I know, this was only the beginning of a long and difficult journey. I could see the wheels turning in my granddaughter's head as she tried to process the situation. She had always wondered about her father, and now that he was standing in front of her, she didn't know what to make of him. I knew I had to be careful, had to protect her from his manipulation. "I'm not sure that's going to work," I said, trying to keep my cool. "You can't just waltz back into our lives and expect everything to be okay." He shrugged, a nonchalant look on his face. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right. I'll do therapy, counseling, whatever you want. Just please, let me see my daughter." I raised an eyebrow. "You think a few sessions of therapy are going to make up for 8 years of abandonment?" He took a step forward, his eyes locked on mine. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to be a part of my daughter's life." My granddaughter spoke up, her voice shaking. "I don't know, Dad. I don't know if I can just forgive you like that." He turned to her, a pleading look on his face. "I know I messed up, sweetie. I know I wasn't there for you when you needed me. But I'm here now, and I want to make it right. Please, just give me a chance." I could see the tears welling up in my granddaughter's eyes, and I knew I had to intervene. "That's enough," I said, my voice firm. "You're not going to manipulate her into forgiving you that easily." He turned to me, his face red with anger. "You're just trying to keep us apart," he spat. "You've always been against me, always been trying to keep me from my daughter." I took a step forward, my heart pounding in my chest. "That's not true," I said, my voice low and even. "I'm just trying to protect my granddaughter from people like you." He sneered at me. "People like me? You mean people who are trying to make amends for their mistakes? I raised an eyebrow. You call showing up after 8 years and demanding $80,000 making amends? He took a step back, his face pale. I didn't mean it like that, he stuttered. I shook my head. I don't think you did. I think you're just trying to use your daughter to get what you want. He looked at my granddaughter, a desperate look on his face. Please, sweetie, don't listen to him. I'm telling you the truth. I want to be a part of your life, to help you and support you. My granddaughter looked at me, then back at her father. I could see the conflict in her eyes, the desire to believe her father and the fear of being hurt again. I don't know, Dad, she said finally. I need some time to think about it. He nodded, a look of relief on his face. Okay, sweetie. Take all the time you need. I'll be here, waiting for you. I turned to him, my voice cold. You're not going anywhere near my granddaughter until we've had a chance to talk to a lawyer and figure out what's going on. He nodded, a sly smile spreading across his face. I wouldn't have it any other way, he said. I knew then that I was in for the fight of my life. My granddaughter's father was not going to give up easily, and I was going to have to do everything in my power to protect her from him. Over the next few days, I did some digging, trying to find out more about my granddaughter's father and his motivations. I discovered that he had a history of manipulation and deception, and that he had a reputation for using people to get what he wanted. I also found out that he was deeply in debt, and that he was facing a number of lawsuits from people he had cheated and swindled. I knew then that his demand for $80,000 was not just about making amends for his past mistakes, but about using my granddaughter to get out of his financial troubles. I was determined to stop him, no matter what it took. I was going to do everything in my power to protect my granddaughter from her father's manipulation, and to make sure that he did not get away with using her for his own gain. But as I delved deeper into the situation, I realized that things were not as simple as they seemed. There were secrets and lies, hidden agendas and ulterior motives. And at the center of it all was my granddaughter, a young girl who was caught in the middle of a complex web of deceit and manipulation. I knew then that I had to be careful, had to tread carefully if I was going to uncover the truth and protect my granddaughter from harm. But I was determined to do just that, no matter what it took. I was going to fight for my granddaughter, to make sure that she was safe and protected from her father's manipulation. And I was going to start by getting to the bottom of things, by uncovering the secrets and lies that were hiding in plain sight. I decided to start by talking to my granddaughter, to see if she knew anything about her father's plans or motivations. I sat her down in the living room, trying to create a comfortable and non-confrontational atmosphere. Hey, kiddo, I wanted to talk to you about your dad, I said, trying to sound casual. What do you know about him? What did he say to you when he came over? She shrugged, looking down at her feet. He just said he was sorry for not being around, and that he wanted to make it right. He said he wanted to be a part of my life, and that he would do whatever it took to make that happen. I nodded, trying to process this information. Did he say anything about the $80,000 he's demanding? She nodded, looking up at me with a worried expression. Yeah, he said that he needed the money to pay off some debts, and that he would use it to start a new business. He said that he would be able to provide for me and give me the life I deserve if I just gave him the money. I felt a surge of anger at this, knowing that her father was using her to get what he wanted. Kiddo, I want you to know that you don't have to give him anything. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Your well-being and safety are my top priority, and I will do everything in my power to protect you from him. She nodded, looking relieved, but also scared. I don't know what to do, Grandpa. I don't know if I can trust him or not. I put my arm around her, trying to comfort her. You don't have to decide anything right now. We'll figure this out together, okay? We'll get to the bottom of things and make sure that you're safe and protected. Over the next few days, I continued to dig into my granddaughter's father's past, trying to uncover any information that might help us. I discovered that he had a history of scamming and manipulating people, and that he had a number of aliases and fake identities. I also found out that he was involved with some shady characters, people who were known to be involved in organized crime. I knew then that I had to be careful, had to be vigilant in order to protect my granddaughter from her father's associates. I decided to hire a private investigator, someone who could help me gather more information and keep an eye on my granddaughter's father. I gave him a call, explaining the situation and asking for his help. He agreed to take the case, and we set up a meeting to discuss the details. As I waited for the meeting, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had been growing inside of me. I knew that I was in over my head, that I was dealing with people who were capable of doing some very bad things. But I was determined to protect my granddaughter, no matter what it took. I was willing to do whatever it took to keep her safe, even if it meant putting myself in harm's way. The meeting with the private investigator was enlightening, to say the least. He told me that he had been able to dig up some information on my granddaughter's father, and that it wasn't good. He's in deep with some bad people, the investigator said, his voice serious. People who will stop at nothing to get what they want. You need to be careful, need to watch your back. I nodded, feeling a sense of trepidation. I will. I'll do whatever it takes to protect my granddaughter. The investigator nodded, his expression grim. I'll do everything I can to help you. But you need to be prepared for the worst. These people are not to be trifled with. I left the meeting feeling more anxious than ever. I knew that I was in a difficult situation, and that I had to be careful if I was going to come out on top. But I was determined to protect my granddaughter, no matter what it took. I was willing to do whatever it took to keep her safe, even if it meant putting myself in harm's way. As I walked back to my car, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I looked around, but didn't see anyone suspicious. Still, the feeling persisted. I knew that I had to be careful, had to be vigilant in order to protect myself and my granddaughter. I was in this now, and I had to see it through to the end. I got into my car and started the engine, trying to shake off the feeling of being watched. As I drove away, I couldn't help but feel like I was being followed. I kept looking in my rearview mirror, but didn't see anyone suspicious. Still, the feeling persisted. I decided to take a detour, to see if I could shake anyone who might be following me. I turned down a side street, and then another, trying to lose anyone who might be behind me. As I drove, I couldn't help but think about the situation I was in. I was dealing with some very bad people, people who would stop at nothing to get what they wanted. And I was right in the middle of it all, trying to protect my granddaughter from her father's associates. I knew that I had to be careful, had to be vigilant in order to protect myself and my granddaughter. But I was also determined to see this through, to make sure that justice was served and that my granddaughter was safe. As I continued to drive, I noticed that the streets were getting increasingly deserted. I was in a part of town that I didn't know very well, and I was starting to feel a little uneasy. I decided to pull over and call the private investigator, to see if he had any advice on how to handle the situation. As I waited for him to answer, I couldn't help but feel like I was being watched. I looked around, but didn't see anyone suspicious. Still, the feeling persisted. Finally, the investigator answered the phone. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice serious. "I think I'm being followed," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've been driving around, trying to shake anyone who might be behind me, but I still feel like I'm being watched." The investigator sighed. "You need to get out of there, now," he said. "Go to a public place, somewhere with a lot of people. And don't go anywhere alone, okay?" I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Okay, I'll do that," I said. But what about my granddaughter? Is she safe? The investigator hesitated. I'm not sure, he said. We need to get her out of there, too. Can you get her to a safe place? I nodded, feeling a surge of fear. I'll get her to a safe place, I said. But what about her father? Is he involved in all of this? The investigator's voice was grim. I think he's in deeper than we thought, he said. We need to get to the bottom of this, and fast. I nodded, feeling a sense of determination. I'll do whatever it takes to protect my granddaughter, I said. And I'll make sure that justice is served. As I hung up the phone, I couldn't help but feel like I was in over my head. I was dealing with some very bad people who would stop at nothing to get what they wanted. And I was right in the middle of it all, trying to protect my granddaughter from her father's associates. But I was determined to see this through, no matter what it took. I started the car and pulled away from the curb, determined to get my granddaughter to a safe place. As I drove, I couldn't help but feel like I was being watched. I kept looking in my rearview mirror, but didn't see anyone suspicious. Still, the feeling persisted. I knew that I had to be careful, had to be vigilant in order to protect myself and my granddaughter. But I was also determined to see this through, to make sure that justice was served and that my granddaughter was safe. As I drove, I couldn't help but wonder what would happen next. Would I be able to get my granddaughter to a safe place? Would I be able to uncover the truth about her father's associates? And what would happen if I couldn't? I pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on the road ahead. I knew that I had to stay calm, had to think clearly if I was going to get through this. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. I could do this, I told myself. I could protect my granddaughter and see this through to the end. But as I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I pulled up to my granddaughter's school, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. I had made it, I had gotten here without anything happening. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves as I got out of the car. I walked into the school, looking around for my granddaughter. I spotted her sitting in the office, looking worried. I rushed over to her, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. Hey, kiddo, I said, trying to sound calm. I'm here to take you to a safe place. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with fear. What's going on, Grandpa? She asked, her voice shaking. I hesitated, not knowing how much to tell her. Your father's associates are looking for us, I said finally. We need to get out of here, now. She nodded, looking scared. Okay, Grandpa, she said. I took her hand, leading her out of the school. As we walked, I couldn't help but feel like we were being watched. I looked around, but didn't see anyone suspicious. Still, the feeling persisted. I quickened my pace, feeling a sense of urgency. We needed to get out of here, now. As we reached the car, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. We had made it, we had gotten out of the school without anything happening. I opened the door, helping my granddaughter in. As I got in behind her, I couldn't help but feel like we were being watched. I looked around, but didn't see anyone suspicious. Still, the feeling persisted. I started the car, feeling a sense of urgency. We needed to get out of here, now. As we pulled away from the curb, I couldn't help but feel like we were being followed. I looked in the rearview mirror, but didn't see anyone suspicious. Still, the feeling persisted. I quickened my pace, feeling a sense of urgency. We needed to get to a safe place, now. As we drove, I couldn't help but think about what was happening. Why were my granddaughter's father's associates after us? What did they want? And what would happen if they caught up to us? I pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on the road ahead. I knew that I had to stay calm, had to think clearly if I was going to get my granddaughter to a safe place. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. I could do this, I told myself. I could protect my granddaughter and get her to a safe place. But as we drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I looked around, but didn't see anyone suspicious. Still, the feeling persisted. I quickened my pace, feeling a sense of urgency. We needed to get to a safe place, now. As we drove, I couldn't help but notice that we were being followed. I saw a car behind us, its headlights shining in the rearview mirror. I quickened my pace, feeling a sense of fear. We were being followed, and I didn't know what to do. I looked around, trying to find a way to lose the car behind us. But it was no use, the car was too close. I knew that we had to get out of here, now. I took a sharp turn, trying to lose the car behind us. But it was no use, the car followed us, its headlights shining in the rearview mirror. I knew that we were in trouble, and I didn't know what to do. I took another sharp turn, trying to lose the car behind us. But it was no use, the car followed us, its headlights shining in the rearview mirror. I could feel my heart racing, my palms sweating on the steering wheel. I knew that we were in trouble, and I didn't know what to do. I looked over at my granddaughter, who was sitting in the passenger seat, her eyes wide with fear. "It's okay, kiddo," I said, trying to sound calm. "I'll get us out of here." But I didn't know if I could. The car behind us was gaining on us, its headlights getting closer and closer. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my breath getting shorter and shorter. I knew that we had to get out of here, now. I took another sharp turn, trying to lose the car behind us. But it was no use, the car followed us, its headlights shining in the rearview mirror. I could feel my tires screeching, my car swerving all over the road. I was losing control, and I didn't know how to get it back. I looked over at my granddaughter, who was sitting in the passenger seat, her eyes wide with fear. "Hold on, kiddo," I said, trying to sound calm. "I'll get us out of here." But I didn't know if I could. The car behind us was getting closer and closer, its headlights shining in the rearview mirror. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my breath getting shorter and shorter. I knew that we had to get out of here, now. I took another sharp turn, trying to lose the car behind us. But it was no use, the car followed us, its headlights shining in the rearview mirror. I could feel my tires screeching, my car swerving all over the road. I was losing control, and I didn't know how to get it back. Suddenly, I heard a loud crash behind us. I looked in the rearview mirror, and saw that the car behind us had crashed into another car. I took advantage of the distraction, and sped away as fast as I could. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew that I had to get us out of there. I looked over at my granddaughter, who was sitting in the passenger seat, her eyes wide with fear. "It's okay, kiddo," I said, trying to sound calm. "We're safe now." But I didn't know if we were. I didn't know what had just happened, or what was going to happen next. All I knew was that we had to get out of there, and fast. I kept driving, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew that I had to keep moving. I looked in the rearview mirror, and saw that the car behind us was still crashed, its occupants getting out. I knew that we had to get out of there, before they came after us again. I sped up, my tires screeching on the pavement. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew that I had to keep moving. I looked over at my granddaughter, who was sitting in the passenger seat, her eyes wide with fear. "It's okay, kiddo," I said, trying to sound calm. "We're safe now." But I didn't know if we were. I didn't know what had just happened, or what was going to happen next. All I knew was that we had to get out of there, and fast. I kept driving, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew that I had to keep moving. Suddenly, I saw a sign on the side of the road. Police station, 1 mile, it read. I knew that we had to go there, that we had to get help. I turned the car around, and headed towards the police station. I didn't know what was going to happen next, but I knew that we had to try. I looked over at my granddaughter, who was sitting in the passenger seat, her eyes wide with fear. It's okay, kiddo, I said, trying to sound calm. We're going to get help now. But I didn't know if we were. I didn't know what was going to happen next, or if we would be safe. All I knew was that we had to try. As we pulled into the police station, I could feel a sense of relief wash over me. We had made it, we were safe. I looked over at my granddaughter, who was sitting in the passenger seat, her eyes still wide with fear. It's okay, kiddo, I said, trying to sound calm. We're safe now. The police will help us. She nodded, but I could tell she was still scared. I got out of the car, and helped her out. We walked into the police station, and were greeted by a kind-faced officer. Can I help you? He asked. I explained the situation, and he listened intently. When I finished, he nodded. Don't worry, we'll take care of this. You and your granddaughter are safe now. He led us to a safe room, where we could wait while he investigated. As we waited, I couldn't help but think about all that had happened. The fear, the uncertainty, the feeling of being watched. It was all over now, and we were safe. But I knew that I couldn't just let it go. I had to make sure that my granddaughter's father and his associates paid for what they had done. The officer came back into the room, a look of satisfaction on his face. We've got them, he said. We've arrested your granddaughter's father and his associates. They're going to face charges for their crimes. I felt a sense of satisfaction, of justice being served. It was over, and we were safe. But then the officer dropped a bombshell. We've also discovered that your granddaughter's father was involved in a much larger crime ring, he said. One that involves embezzlement, money laundering, and other serious crimes. I was stunned. I had no idea that it was that big. The officer continued. We're going to need your granddaughter's testimony to take down the rest of the crime ring. Are you willing to cooperate? I looked over at my granddaughter, who was sitting next to me, her eyes wide with fear. I knew that this was going to be hard for her, but I also knew that it was necessary. We'll do it, I said. We'll cooperate. The officer nodded, a look of gratitude on his face. Thank you, he said. We'll do everything we can to protect you and your granddaughter. Over the next few weeks, we worked with the police to take down the crime ring. My granddaughter testified, and her father and his associates were sentenced to long prison terms. It was a difficult time, but we made it through. And in the end, justice was served. As we walked out of the courtroom, I felt a sense of pride and satisfaction. We had done it, we had brought down the people who had hurt us. My granddaughter looked up at me, a smile on her face. Thank you, Grandpa, she said. I'm glad it's over. I hugged her tightly, feeling a sense of love and gratitude. Me too, kiddo, I said. Me too. We walked out of the courtroom, into a bright and sunny day. We were free, we were safe, and we were together. And that's all that mattered.